All right, everybody, welcome back. We are on chapter 9, I think. And this week we're going to be doing some stuff with databases. We've been using local storage in our last project. That's obviously not best case, but it was neat to use that to store information and pull information from. And in this lesson, we're going to use MongoDB. It's for databases. So obviously this week you'll turn in your self-test exercises, the programming project, which I'll cover, and the chapter 9 quiz. Make sure you read the chapter and go through the chapter material because you'll learn something there too. You'll see a link for MongoDB in on the course page, and it should open up just like this. You are going to download the MSI package. Just click download, and it will download. Then you'll install it. And I think I'm just going to accept all of the defaults. Goodness gracious, keeps going on the screen. Accept the terms. I'm going to do a complete setup. And I'm going to leave everything the way it is. And install it. All right, once it finally finishes, you can click finish and it should open the MongoDB Compass. And this is what we'll use. This will host our databases. Take note of this URL, MongoDB localhost 27017. That's going to be the port you need to connect to your database. And I think this is just default. Connect and see what happens. Okay, so I got nothing in here yet. Got local config admin, but there's no these databases are in here by default. You can look and see what's in them. Startup log. That's just a log of, information. But there's 3 databases in here. We're going to actually create a third or a fourth and use it. For now, you can just you can close it or put it to the side or whatever you're going to do. So we will go to what we're going to do is we are going to create a sign-in page or a sign-up page, basically, that allows a person to put their name and email and sign up for whatever service, and that information be stored in a database. Now, this is obviously oversimplistic. You depending on what you're selling or what they're signing up for, you're going to want name, address, passwords, and all that other good stuff. But we're just doing a real simple project this week. So here you're looking at my HTML page. It's real simple here. It's just it says sign up form. It's got an input for name, which is text type. I give it a class. You don't have to do that unless you're going to style it, which you should. It's got an ID, it's got a name, it's got a placeholder, and it is required. Second, I have an email type input and the same stuff, and a submit button, and that's it. What you need to take note about this is that this form, the action is the / sign up with a method of post, and that's what's going to send the information over to our database. I then have a sign up success. So if it's successful, it's just going to take you to this page and say, hey, the sign up was successful. So 2 pages, a little CSS just there to keep it all in the center, and that is it. So, but we do need to create a few things. We need our node stuff. So we want npm init, and we're going to create our file. Package name, version, description. I'm just going to name it server because I do that. And it's all good. I hit something else. Dang it. I didn't hit the enter button and it aborted, so I got to do it again. Okay, so we have our package JSON, and we'll write the server.js here in a minute. We also want npm to install a few things. We're going to use Express again. We're going to use body parser, and we're going to use Mongoose. So Mongoose helps you work with MongoDB. That something. You couldn't see that, could you? So this is the command I use to install body parser, Mongoose, and Express. And if you look in your packages JSON or the package lock, which one is it? So you can see here that it installed some Mongoose stuff. I thought it was going to be some other stuff. Anyway, let's hope that works. Put this back. All right, so that should be all we need to do for Node. Now we need to make our server.js. And we'll do the same thing that we've done in every other file. We need Express. We need body parser. Body parser. We need Mongoose. EXP. They're different colors, and I don't know what that means. Let's see if this all works. We want to log in the console when the server starts. Just put a little command in there, and we're going to have a constant server as the Express server. And then server use body parser.json. Oops. We need to tell it where the files are going to be. Static. Name. Sure you've seen me do this in another project as well. And then we'll do another console. Oops. Let's do a different, do 8,000 or whatever. Do whatever port you want. I don't care. Just make sure that you use the right port. And then I'll just throw this down at the bottom. So in here, we have to tell it to connect to the Mongoose. We have to tell Mongoose to connect to the MongoDB database. So Mongoose connect. And you remember that the URL that you got in Compass. I don't know how you get back to it. Start a blog. No. Oh, well, you can see it says localhost 27017 here. Connection info. Localhost. All right, well, at any rate, you're going to put that information in here, and it should look like this. If it's the default, MongoDB : / localhost with a port 27017, and then you're going to give your database a name. Just say MyDB for this one. Just keep it. How about that? Mongoose connect to MyDB, and then we're going to give it a couple of arguments, or whatever you want to call them here. Use new URL. Oops. Parser. And use unified topology. UNITOPOLOGY. This kind of configures the database so that it works properly. Oh, this goes down here. We need a variable for our database. It's going to equal the Mongoose connection. So you have a variable for your database, so you can, so it pulls information out, stores it in a variable while you're using the stuff, and then you can pull it back and forth, and it's not actually, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but you need a variable for the database to hold this data in memory while you're using it, if that makes sense. If our database is on and there's an error, we want to make sure it does a thing. In this case, we're just going to have it tell us, hey, it can't connect to the database. We are going to open it once. We're going to just use the once to open the database. And when we open the database, we again want to do a thing. Oops. And I like to put these in here just so I know what's going on, because sometimes things are happening and there's no indication outwardly that it actually worked or didn't work or whatever the deal is. So I always log stuff in the console just so I can see it. All right, so now we're going to do the post method, which is the sign up post here. So when they hit this submit button, it does this sign up post. We need to write that. So we'll go back here and we will do server.post. Oops. Sign up. And we're going to get a request and a response, or make a request and get a response, and then it is going to do a thing. The first thing it's going to do is we need a variable for each of the things that are on the page. Right now we just have name and email, so that makes it easy. The request is going to contain or get from the body the name. And remember, this is kind of like the document get element by ID. This is the element ID name in the body of the page that's calling the sign up function. So there you go, name ID. We're going to get that and store it in a variable called name. And then we are also going to get that email. Yeah. And then what are we going to do with those two variables? Well, we need to probably we're using a database, so we need to store them. What we're going to do is store them in a key value pair, just to make it easier. I don't know if that actually makes it easier or not. The name is going to be stored as name. The email is email. Email. All right, and then we have to make a collection. So what's actually going to be stored in the database? So we're going to take these variables and then the data variable and make it a collection in the database. We'll call that collection users. And then we are going to insert one data, that variable. If there's an error, we're going to do something else. I feel like I'm missing a... We're going to do something else. If error. Throw an error. If there's no error, if there's no error, we're going to say we want the console to tell us that there was no error, and we put the record in there like we told it to. And I feel like I am missing something. I'm missing this. That's where that goes. Okay. Server post. Yep. All right, that should work. But what we need to do, it's going to insert this. It's going to insert the information from this variable data that it has pulled from the HTML page. If there's an error, it's going to throw an error. If there's not an error, it's going to tell you in the console that the record was added successfully to your database. And the last thing that we want to do is take the user that signed up and it went successful. We want to send them over to that successful sign up page. So we're just going to redirect them to that page. Oops. Sign up success.html. Oops, I said sign. It's signed up. Sign up success. Whatever your page, your sign up successful page is, whatever you name it, that goes here. So that is the post, and it'll send it over there and do the thing. We need to do a server get. And another one of the, oops. request response, do a thing. Set. Oops. We're going to do this and just allow it to avoid any conflicts for our little lesson here. Just going to allow it to accept information from anywhere. And this is where, man, a lot of extra space here. And then right here, just tell it to listen on whatever port you told it to. All right, that should work. Let's see what happens. The first thing I'm going to do is start node. Oh, I gotta save everything first. Save all. Okay, it's already saved. Node server .js. And something's wrong. Objects not defined. It's supposed to be ERR, not error. What line is that? 19. Ah, didn't put my little quotes around it. All right, save that. Try again. I like this. I like to do this. Try and get it in one take. Sometimes it's frustrating, but I like you to see what happened. What do I do when it's not working? That way, if you have the same error or something similar, you know how to kind of work through them. Oops, what did I just do? That's not right. Dang. All right, node server .js. And it's okay, good, it did work. It tells you there's some depreciation, blah 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 blah, unified technology. Don't worry about that. As long as you got your starting server.js and you're listening on port, that's great. So let's go to the web page 127.0.0.1, port 8000. And we get my little sign up form. I'm going to close this. All right, now let's see what happens. Richard Johnson wants to sign up, and he's got a Gmail, oops, at gmail.com. Submit, sign up successful. Okay, now if I look over in the console, it first says, it's first thing it says connected to the database, so that worked. And the next thing it said is the record was inserted successfully, and then it took us to our sign up successful page. So how do we know that worked? We can go back over here to our compass, and if we go look in databases now, maybe we need to close it and reopen it. I don't know. Queries, no. Let's see if I close this and then reopen. Just maybe search for compass. No. Mongoose. Mongo. Just search for Mongo in your search bar. It should come up MongoDB Compass application, and click on that. And then it should open new connection, localhost, recent connections. What's today? The 8th. I don't know what time it's getting this from, but Let's see if we connect here. Okay, here's my DB. I did have to restart Compass. You can see the database that I named MyDB here. So remember in the code, I called it, in this local host, I called it MyDB, and the collection that we created is going to be users. So they're both there. It created a, my database is MyDB, and this collection is users. And in there, the object that we have is Richard Johnson at rdj@gmail.com. So that works. Super simple. This will give you kind of basic idea how sign-up pages work, or how like passwords are stored, but that's a whole nother thing because you got to use salts and hashes and not actually store the passwords. Yeah, super simple project. This is what I want you to do for this week's project. What I would prefer that you do is something a little more. I mean, that's a pretty boring sign up page, right? Let's see if this is the right one. I don't know if this is the one I know. I've done this project too many times. Yeah, I trust terminal. So instead of just a boring I don't remember what server I used for this. Not that one. 3000. All right, so yeah, this is what I did. Add a few more inputs. Like I've got 2 texts, first name, last name. I got a birth date input, email, phone number. You can do password inputs, just different inputs, and use what I taught you in the lesson to expand on what we did. I'd like to see a few more inputs. I'd like to see something other than the boring page. So Richard Johnson, and then a birth date, and then an email, and then even a phone number, 252-555-144, and then a sign up page. You know, it does something just a little bit different, a little more exciting, and not a boring page. So you learn a little bit, and you learn a little bit more HTML, CSS, and that other stuff by expanding on what I've taught you in this lesson. If you have any questions, let me know, and see you next week.